What we'll do next is we'll begin to create our CSS so that we can configure the layout so that it works in the way we want. And what we want to do is we want to create a multiple column layout that will grow and expand based on the size of the screen window. So when the screen is smaller, we only want about 2 columns, and then as it gets bigger, it'll expand to 3 and finally 4 columns. We'll go into the CSS file to make these changes. I've already opened up my style.css file right here. So I'll just put my styles at the very bottom of the regular styles. So this is going to be before any of the media queries occur on my page. And I will start by just making a comment so that it'll be easy to see where these styles start. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to target the items that we have right here, and we're going to make sure that we don't have any bullets. I actually don't see any bullets here, but I want to make sure that I implicitly remove the bullets since I am using a list. In order to specify that we just want these styles to be affecting the images that exist within our gallery, we're going to go ahead and use the photo gallery ID that we've specified on this particular UL. So I'll make a rule for hash photo gallery UL, and I'll just tell the list style type to be none. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create our multi-column layout that we want to be using in this particular exercise. There is a variety of ways to achieve this. We'll be using a rule on our list items of our photos, and we're going to achieve this by using a display of inline on those list items. You could also achieve the same results by using a float or by using the CSS3's column count, although that is not completely supported as of yet, but could be a good option in some situations. We're also going to be positioning some elements based on the LI's position, so I'm just going to turn on position relative, which actually isn't going to affect the layout at all, but will allow us to position some other items absolutely based on the relative parent. So we'll add that in as a rule as well. If we save our page and check in the browser, you can now see that I have a grid of images that displays on my page. I am also going to add a little bit of spacing between the images. I want the spacing to be a little bit greater than what it currently is, so we'll add that onto our rules as well. And I'm going to actually add that onto the images themselves. We'll set the margin settings to be 0.75 ems for the right and the bottom. If we save and check in the browser, we'll just have a little greater spacing between our images, which improves the layout of our grid. And you can see that our grid does switch to being multiple columns as we move down to the smaller sizes. Now that we have our grid reflowing in the manner that we want, we're going to add in a CSS rule that will allow the title attribute to display on the screen. And let's go ahead and add that now. We're going to be using the pseudo selector for before. The pseudo selectors for before and after are elements which allow you to insert content onto a page from CSS without it needing to actually be HTML. So the result actually doesn't get added into the DOM, it appears on the page as if it is, but it's a very handy way in certain situations to insert content. So the selectors that we're going to use are going to be .photos a:\before, and the content that we want to display is going to be generated from the attribute property that we had specified on the A tags. So we'll specify the title attribute. That's the content that we actually want to pull into the page. The rest of the rules that we're going to add to this particular selector are going to be to style and position the title content so that it will appear on the page in the manner that we want. So I'm going to tell it to display as block, we'll position absolute, I'm going to specify top and left values. The top value that I'm going to use is going to be negative 152 pixels. The thumbnail images that I'm using are 152 pixels. So by using negative 152, this is going to ensure that the content appears at the very top of the thumbnail image. I'm going to use a left value of 1 pixel, and I just need that as a shim to shove the title over. Because I have a border around the image, that's going to become important. I'm going to specify a width of the block to be 150 pixels, and I'm using 150 even though my image is 152 by 152 because I have a border all the way around of 1 pixel, and I want the little title attribute to appear within that section. We'll add a background color onto the title attribute, and this will just allow it to stand off of the image a little bit more. We're going to use RGBA color, which will allow us to specify a color value in addition to adding a little bit of transparency. So we'll make this 80% transparent, which will allow you to see through to the image. I'm going to specify that I want the font color to be white. We're going to use text align of center to align the content in the middle of this block that we're adding. And I'm going to add a z-index of 50 just to ensure that this goes in front of everything else. If we save now and we refresh in the browser, you can see that the title information that we specified is now being pulled onto this page, and it displays as an overlay on top of our images. Now this looks good at my full-size screen, but you can see as I resize my page down, I do run into a couple little issues at certain breakpoints. This is actually a result of the rule that we placed on the LI, displaying the LI as inline. It's conflicting a little bit with the content that's being interjected onto the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be changing the LI display of inline to remaining block level as they are by default, but if I want the multiple column layout, I'm going to change this to a float of left, and because I'm floating items, I'm going to need to go back into the HTML and make sure that I clear the floated items. So I'm just going to insert a div with a class of clear_it after my unordered list right here. So right before the article closes, I'm going to insert my clear_it div. If I save both of these pages and we refresh and look in the browser, you'll now notice that that spacing issue is not occurring. I do, however, have a little bit of problems with my positioning, and I also can now see the bullets on my list items. So let's make some subtle changes to our CSS. On the photo LI, I'm going to add, in addition to what I have, a list style type of none. That'll remove the bullets. And now that these items are being floated, I'm going to change the top offset from negative 152 pixels to 0 pixels. And you can see that when I refresh my screen, now the labels occur in the areas that we want. We have our thumbnails appearing in the grid layout, and as I resize my screen down to the smaller sizes, the titles and the images reflow in the manner that is preferable to what we'd like to have happen on our page. So now our gallery layout looks great. Everything is working in the way that we want at all of the various sizes on our screen. If we click these images, we do go to a separate page that is just the image loading on the screen. So in the next exercise, I'm going to show you how we can add that responsive lightbox image gallery to our page, and we'll be incorporating that in the next video.